Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Renegade Immortal episode number 203 based on novel. So let's start. This was a purple, wooden sword that gave off a cold and fierce aura. The sword also gave off a purple glow and left behind a trail of purple. The purple light stopped outside the Thunder Lake. On the sword stood a man about 30 years old. His face was white without any facial hair and he was slightly handsome. However, his phoenix eyes revealed a strange, feminine feel. He was wearing a golden-purple robe that seemed to flow with an invisible wind. His gaze went past Shen Gonghu and landed on Wang Lin. What the man saw caused his pupils to shrink an indiscernible amount and all of the pores on his body immediately opened. At the moment this person appeared, Shen Gonghu's expression became gloomy. The thunder beast beside him stood and growled, its eyes filled with a hostile gaze. As for the silver-horned thunder beast, it withdrew its gaze from Wang Lin and glanced at the feminine man. Its eyes were filled with disdain as he lied there and began playing with the thunder around it. Those strands of thunder were extremely obedient under its control. They moved around its body like little hands scratching an itch. Not far away on an asteroid, the celestial guard just sat there and didn't even look over. If this person threatened its owner, it would immediately attack even if it had to sacrifice itself. This was due to the imprint left on its soul. However, if there were no threat to its master, then the person before him could slaughter 100,000 people and it wouldn't move an inch. Shen Gonghu said, "Zhong Konglai?" The feminine man carefully withdrew his gaze from Wang Lin because he was afraid of causing a misunderstanding. In his view, although this person's cultivation level was only at the late stage of ascendant, to be able to enter the inner ring of the Thunder Lake was simply too strange. Unless this person was hiding an unimaginably powerful treasure, he must have been hiding his real cultivation level. He also saw the silver-horned thunder beast at the edge of the Thunder Lake and the puppet. His suspicion deepened. He thought, he must have some hidden treasure. It's impossible for him to be concealing his cultivation level. Just why are there two thunder beasts here? Could this person also be a messenger of the Thunder Celestial Temple? After all, being inside the inner circle of the Thunder Lake was a terrifying prospect. Even with his peak corporeal yang cultivation, it was impossible for him to enter the inner circle. It's the Shengong family's Shen Gonghu. I didn't recognize you before. Your cultivation level has dropped a lot. The feminine man focused his mind and looked at Shen Gonghu. Shen Gonghu coldly snorted in his head, but his expression remained the same. However, his eyes were a bit gloomy as he calmly said, "This place is not for you. Why haven't you left yet?" Although he was injured and his cultivation hadn't recovered, with Wang Lin here, he would still dare to speak like this even if the Lord of the Thunder Celestial Temple personally came. Zhong Konglai frowned and subconsciously looked at Wang Lin. He slowly said, "What big words. Does this place belong to your Shengong family? You won't allow outsiders to come just because you brought a junior here to cultivate?" Shen Gonghu sneered but didn't explain. He coldly said, "If you don't leave in 3 breaths, then you might as well not leave." He really disliked this talented man from the Shan family. If it wasn't for the fact that their strengths were very close, the two would have already attacked each other. If this Zhong Konglai remained ungrateful and disturbed his senior's cultivation, he would attack even though his cultivation was damaged. As long as senior looked at Zhong Konglai with that gaze, it would be enough to cause Zhong Konglai to collapse. After all, this person wasn't a messenger of the Thunder Celestial Temple. Although killing him would be troublesome, as long as senior was here, it would be a small matter. Zhong Konglai's eyes narrowed and then he immediately retreated. He was a cautious person, and as he retreated, his eyes fell on Wang Lin, who was in the depths of the Thunder Lake. The suspicion in his heart became even stronger. Why does this Shen Gonghu speak like this? His injuries can easily be seen through by any discerning eye. Could he be bluffing? If he isn't bluffing, then he must have a reason. Could it be this junior? Zhong Konglai thought about many things at once. 3 breaths have passed. Shen Gonghu grinned and stood up. Thunder immediately filled his body and gave off popping sounds. He charged out and the thunder beast let out a roar as it followed closely behind. However, the difference was that as it stepped out, it subconsciously looked at Wang Lin. Its eyes were filled with awe and were without a trace of doubt. The thunder beast's gaze caused Zhong Konglia's mind to tremble. Although Shen Gonghu was a scheming person, the thunder beast was very different. The information revealed by the thunder beast's eyes couldn't be thought about too deeply. The answer that its gaze revealed shook Zhong Konglia's mind. Due to his cautious personality, he immediately backed up without hesitation and shouted, "Shen Gonghu, I'm a considerate person. If you and I battle here, it will inevitably disturb your junior's cultivation. If you want a battle, let us leave here and battle outside the asteroid field." There was an emphasis on the word junior. Shen Gonghu's gaze became cold as he stepped outside the Thunder Lake and sneered. Why go through so much trouble? Here will be fine. The more Shen Gonghu was like this, the more doubt Zhong Konglai felt. He would rather retreat than attack. It was clear that Shen Gonghu was trying to force him to attack. Thinking about the Thunder Beast's gaze, an absurd idea emerged in Zhong Konglia's mind. His eyes lit up, his hand formed a seal, and a ray of purple thunder appeared in his palm. The purple-wood sword under him released powerful sword energy. The two forces fused to form a powerful pressure. This powerful pressure contained origin energy. It was only the first spell, but he was already using origin spell. It was clear that Zhong Konglai was extremely cautious of this battle. The battle was an instant away from starting. Shen Gonghu took a step and his hand pointed at the sky as if he was about to summon divine retribution lightning. The thunder beast beside him roared and gathered countless thunderbolts toward its body. The two of them were creating a very shocking scene. However, just at this instant, Wang Lin slowly opened his eyes and calmly said, "Shen Gonghu, I will not help you in this battle. Let it be your test for pledging under me. If you lose, then I'll return your Dao soul back to you." Wang Lin's expression was neutral, but he was secretly distressed. He didn't stand a chance against Shen Gonghu nor this Zhong Konglai. Once Shen Gonghu failed, he would be in a bad situation. He originally wanted to find a quiet place to cultivate, but he seemed unable to achieve this. After this troublesome Zhong Konglai had appeared, Wang Lin quickly thought about this and spoke those words. Shen Gonghu's body trembled and the battle intent in his eyes reached a limit. He stared at Zhong Konglin but respectfully replied, "Wang Lin, Lord can rest assured, Shen Gonghu will not be defeated." Shen Gonghu took a deep breath as he touched his bag of holding and took out a bottle of pills. Zhong Konglia's expression changed greatly. The moment Wang Lin said those words, he saw the hidden reverence inside Shen Gonghu's eyes. When he saw that kind of demeanor, he thought that his eyes had gone bad. Also, that thunder beast's body trembled when that person spoke, it seemed as if it was terrified. In particular, the person talked about pledging. This information caused Zhong Konglia's mind to shake greatly. If these only made him doubt, then Shen Gonghu's response shocked Zhong Konglai. It was enough to make every hair in his body stand up. "Lord." This word was not something easily spoken in the All-Heaven star system. This was especially true for second-step cultivators like them. Only after pledging themselves to a powerful existence would someone call the other Lord. Zhong Konglai didn't suspect Shen Gonghu was faking, because none of this was worth it. Shen Gonghu was extremely arrogant and was the kind of person that would rather die than humiliate himself. Moreover, even if the two of them battled, it would be extremely difficult for either to die, at most they'd be seriously injured. Even Zhong Konglai himself wouldn't casually call someone Lord, just to avoid a battle that wouldn't even decide his life and death. After combining this with his previous speculations, that absurd idea came into his mind once more. His eyes were filled with terror as if he still couldn't believe it. Could it be? Could it be that this person didn't rely on a magical treasure to enter the inner part of the Thunder Lake but has concealed his cultivation? If it isn't so, how could he make the arrogant Shen Gonghu pledge and call him Lord? Zhong Konglai sucked in a breath of cold air and quickly retreated once more. His mind quickly changed and he immediately said, "Brother Shen Gong shouldn't be impulsive." Shen Gonghu's eyes became cold and he crushed the pill bottle in his hand. There was only one red pill inside, and he swallowed it. His aura became violent and tyrannical immediately after doing so. Zhong Konglai, battle with me. With a roar, Shen Gonghu's right hand pointed at the sky. The origin energy inside his body rushed out, and in an instant a dragon-like bolt of thunder descended from the void. This move affected the Thunder Lake. Countless strands of thunder gathered toward Shen Gonghu. When Wang Lin saw Shen Gonghu's origin spell, his eyes revealed a strange light. This spell was very strong. It involved using one's own origin energy to call out heavenly thunder. This wasn't any weaker than the Origin Furnace spell. Although it wasn't as grand as the Origin Furnace spell, it was even more powerful. Zhong Konglia's expression changed and he retreated once more. At the same time, his foot moved and the wooden sword flew up. He pointed at the wooden sword and it shot out. The wooden sword was covered in a purple light and carried with it a violent rumble. Shen Gonghu's eyes were filled with battle intent. He wanted to display all his strength in this battle because Senior was watching. Shen Gonghu let out a roar. His hand trembled slightly as he was injured. Although he had slightly recovered and had the help of the Thunder Celestial Temple's pill to suppress the injuries, allowing him to reach his peak for a moment, it still wasn't enough to use this spell. He clenched his teeth and his right hand suddenly fell. The divine tributuation lightning that appeared suddenly descended with unimaginable might. Zhong Konglia's expression turned gloomy. His hand rapidly formed seals and he spat out a mouthful of his body's vitality, which landed on the wooden sword. The wooden sword let out a roar before emitting a powerful sword energy and shooting directly at the divine tributuation lightning. When the two collided, a shocking bang spread across the area. The lightning collapsed and the wooden sword retreated. The remaining origin energy reached a limit and a large amount of asteroids collapsed. Zhong Konglia's body trembled and he retreated a few steps. His expression was pale as he gloomily stared at Shen Gonghu. He was angered, and now his eyes were filled with battle intent as well. Shen Gonghu also retreated until he backed up into the Thunder Lake. Blood was coming out from the corner of his mouth. He looked at Zhong Konglai and smiled. "I find your feminine face displeasing to the eye. I didn't expect you to actually have some skill." Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He had observed the battle just now very carefully and had gained some enlightenment. He wouldn't be able to withstand a hit from either of these two corporeal young origin spells. However, he saw some problems. Shen Gonghu's origin spell seemed imperfect. The power of that divine retribution lightning should have been stronger. Wang Lin had, after all, seen the world of the third step, and before he had stepped into the inner ring, he had vaguely seen the law of thunder. So it wasn't a surprise for him to see problems in Shen Gonghu's spell. This kind of phenomenon sometimes occurred in the mortal world's martial arts world. Someone who knew no martial arts but had read countless secret techniques and manuals would often be able to point out problems when they saw a move as the spectator. Although that person could see through the technique and gave out pointers, that person wasn't able to use it personally. Wang Lin was currently in this state. His eyes lit up and he said, "Shen Gonghu, your origin spell contained the power of thunder, but not the soul of thunder. Although your Dao heart fused with it, it isn't enough. Your faith lacks the power of thunder." Shen Gonghu was startled. This wasn't the first time he had heard those words. The Lord of the Thunder Celestial Temple and his family elders had also said this. However, hearing it from Wang Lin made him nervous, and he respectfully said, "Please give me guidance, my lord." Not only Shen Gonghu, but the distant Zhong Konglai was also startled. He became more and more inclined to that absurd speculation he had. He had the same problem Shen Gonghu did. The Zhong family elder had also said this, and it was something they had to comprehend on their own. This was something not even the elders really understood and were still discovering, so how could they teach their juniors if they didn't know what was right or wrong? If they were right, it would be fine, but what if they were wrong? After all, no one knew if their path was right or wrong compared to the true path. This was because one knew the path to the third step. However, Wang Lin was different. He had seen the third step, so he knew the direction of progression. Others were afraid to say anything, because even if they did, they weren't sure if it was correct. However, Wang Lin was different. He knew that what he had said was definitely correct. The current scene was extremely bizarre. Both Shen Gonghu and Zhong Konglai were both having a fierce battle filled with monstrous battle intent, but at the next instant, both of them had given up battling. Instead, they were focused on Wang Lin. Their gazes were different. Shen Gonghu's was filled with blind reverence, while Zhong Konglai's was filled with doubt. Wang Lin didn't continue to speak. This kind of thing was not something that could be clearly explained. While confused, if one understood, they would understand. Otherwise, they needed an opportunity, or else they would never understand. While pondering, Wang Lin raised his right hand and casually pinched the air. A strand of thunder landed in his palm. In the eyes of Shen Gonghu and Zhong Konglai, the power wasn't strong. However, what happened next caused both of them to gasp. Wang Lin's eyes released a strange light as he stared at the strand of thunder and waved his right hand. The strand of thunder disappeared, and what was left was a flickering light. It wasn't able to last very long and collapsed after a moment. Wang Lin closed his eyes to conceal the exhaustion within them. If it wasn't for the fact that the current situation was too dangerous, he wouldn't have bothered to put up this act. As Wang Lin closed his eyes, he slowly said, "Do you understand? Origin." Return to the origin. Shen Gonghu's eyes shined brightly and his body trembled from excitement. He gave Wang Lin a deep bow without any hesitation. His reverence for Wang Lin increased almost to the point of worship. He was suddenly enlightened as if a layer of paper was torn through. At this moment, Shen Gonghu was enlightened. He suddenly turned toward Zhong Konglai with glowing eyes and said, "Let us fight again." At this moment, Zhong Konglai's scalp was numb and his speculation of Wang Lin had reached a peak. He no longer doubted the absurd idea in his mind. He took a few steps back and then bowed toward Wang Lin and respectfully said, "This junior is Zhong Konglai. I didn't know senior was cultivating here. I offended you earlier, and I hope senior can forgive me. Junior will leave right away." He looked enviously at Shen Gonghu. He had already understood why someone as arrogant as Shen Gonghu would pledge to another. Zhong Konglai's voice contained a sour tone as he clasped his hands and said, "Congratulations, brother Shen Gong." Shen Gonghu didn't speak and coldly looked at Zhong Konglai. Zhong Konglai didn't mind and laughed. "Brother Shen Gong, I have already received a summon book from the Thunder Celestial Temple. In the future, both you and I will be messengers of the Thunder Celestial Temple." He once again bowed toward Wang Lin before turning around and leaving. Shen Gonghu didn't stop him, but his eyes turned frosty. Wang Lin calmly asked, "What is a summon book?" Shen Gonghu quickly turned around and respectfully said, "The summon book is a communication token from the Thunder Celestial Temple. Any candidate for becoming a messenger of the Thunder Celestial Temple will receive a summon book. 3 months before the Thunder Celestial Realm opens, the Thunder Celestial Hall will reorganize their messengers. If there are any messengers missing, the candidates will compete with each other for the position. With Zhong Konglai's cultivation, if there are no accidents, I fear he will win this time." Wang Lin nodded slightly. He no longer spoke and continued to absorb thunder and converting it into origin energy. Shen Gonghu's eyes revealed excitement. He had gained some enlightenment earlier, and now he immediately sat down in the Thunder Lake to cultivate. Time slowly passed. In the blink of an eye, 8 years went by. Adding the 2 years from before, 10 years passed by in a flash. The origin energy inside Wang Lin gradually stabilized as he absorbed origin energy using the Thunder Origin spell. His origin soul was now full and couldn't absorb any more. Wang Lin knew that it was because his cultivation level wasn't high enough. Only after entering the second step could he continue to absorb origin energy. Right now the most important thing was to break through his own cultivation. He stood up and looked at the thunder around him. The 10 years of contact made him understand thunder even better. It was as if he could see the origin of thunder, even though it was a bit blurry. His body moved and Wang Lin left the inner part of the Thunder Lake. He made his way toward the edge. Shen Gonghu was sent away by Wang Lin 3 years ago. Although this person revered him, Wang Lin didn't feel comfortable. Before Shen Gonghu left, he left a message: Jade. The silver-horned thunder beast came over. Wang Lin sat on the thunder beast and it turned into a ray of thunder as it flew away from this place. The celestial guard once more returned to Wang Lin's shadow. Due to absorbing thunder in the Thunder Lake for 10 years, the speed of the thunder beast had increased. It rushed out of the asteroid field and disappeared among the stars. Wang Lin already knew the changes the heaven-defying bead had gone through. Not only were the 3 souls inside not affected, they looked even brighter than before. I must go to the Thunder Celestial Realm that is opening in 20 years. However, right now I need to find a hidden place to increase my cultivation level. Also, due to the change in the heaven-defying bead, it no longer needs the power of the 5 elements. So what does it need now? Wang Lin began to ponder on the back of the thunder beast. The heaven-defying bead was split between yin and yang. The two weren't fused, which confused Wang Lin. Sun and moon, yin and yang, as Wang Lin pondered, the thunder beast flew through the star-filled space. After an unknown amount of time, Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and a jade appeared in his hand. This was something Shengong Hu had left. It was a detailed star map of the southern domain of the All-Heaven star system. There were detailed introductions inside, so Wang Lin wouldn't get lost as long as he had this. The place before him was considered the wilderness of the southern domain. Most of the planets here were deserted without anything special about them. Powerful cultivators seldomly came here. However, there were mortals living on these planets along with some low-rank cultivation families. In 20 years of time, I need to prepare for the trip to the Thunder Celestial Realm. Also, some of my spells need some adjustments. Many of my spells don't conform with the 3rd step I saw. If I continue using them, the path I walk will be wrong. In particular, the resentful spirits needed from my underworld river need to be quickly collected. Also, it is about time I have my own cultivation planet in the All-Heaven star system. As Wang Lin pondered, his eyes lit up. Before him was a wasted planet. It was filled with vitality, so it meant that there were a lot of mortals living there. The reason he chose this place was because it was very similar to planet Suzaku. He was somewhat homesick. Wang Lin jumped off the thunder beast. After he did so, it let out a pitiful cry and helplessly turned into the war chariot before entering Wang Lin's bag. Just as he was about to charge toward the planet, Wang Lin's expression suddenly changed. Inside his bag, a powerful fluctuation came from inside the celestial sword. This fluctuation contained a powerful aura and ancient sword intent. Damn sword intent, your grandpa Shu had finally conquered you. Henceforth, I'm the true sword spirit. I'm very badass. Very badass. Wang Lin's expression was strange as he looked down at his bag of holding. The bag also exuded a powerful sword intent along with an arrogant aura that was about to charge out. Little Lindsay, you still not letting your lord Shu out? Humph, HMPH, let me tell you I'm badass now. Shuligwa's overbearing voice came from the bag. The bag of holding trembled violently as if a force from ancient time was about to charge out. Just at the moment when this force reached a peak, Wang Lin's eyes were calm as he viciously hit the bag of holding. Shuligwa's overbearing voice immediately weakened. Even the dense sword intent was suppressed and was unable to spread out. Oh. Little Lindsay, you still don't understand the situation. This lord don't blame you. This lord is not the little Shuligwa I was before. This lord had inherited the ancient sword intent. Before he finished speaking, Wang Lin's hand formed a seal and pointed at the bag. This time Shuligwa's voice suddenly stopped. Wang Lin frowned and calmly said, noisy. His body charged directly toward the wasted planet before him. From far away, this planet was covered in blue. It seemed oceans occupied most of its surface. The vitality coming from it was very strong. Clearly there were a lot of mortals living there. Wang Lin's speed was very fast. He was like a meteor as he charged toward the planet. Because he was moving too fast, an elliptical light cone appeared around him. He pierced through space as he rushed into the planet. The atmosphere of this planet was thin and Wang Lin charged directly through it. When he arrived in the sky above the planet and looked down, he revealed a trace of confusion. This place was far too similar to planet Suzaku. It wasn't a similarity in appearance but the feeling and the aura. Wang Lin's divine sense spread out and scanned the planet. There were cultivators here, but the most powerful cultivator was only at the nascent soul stage. There wasn't even a single soul formation cultivator. He pondered for a bit. He decided to not look for a secret place but chose the highest mountain on the planet. Once he located the mountain, he flew there directly. Fengyun Peak was the highest peak on planet Qingling. Although the spiritual energy here was thin, it had a spectacular view. One could easily see the end of the world from the peak. It was also covered in mist, making it look like a celestial mountain. There were many cultivation families on planet Qingling. Their numbers were on par with the amount of mortal nations on this densely populated planet. Almost every mortal country had at least one or two cultivation families. This strange phenomenon had to do with the fact that this planet didn't have enough spiritual energy and had no soul formation cultivators. This Hengyun Peak belonged to the Zhong family, who had the most nascent soul cultivators. Normally, the nascent soul cultivators in the Zhong family, whose lifespans were almost up, would come here and enter closed-door cultivation to attempt to comprehend the heavens. Over time, the originally beautiful peak became bare for some unknown reason. Even the wind that came from the mountain became cold. On this day, the Zhong family member that had been stuck at the nascent soul stage the longest, the family head, Zhong Xinhai, walked out from the mountain with a body filled with death aura. Every cultivator whose life was about to end would go through this cycle. They would sit at the top of the Hengyun Peak and stare at the sky as their life slowly ran out. He could feel that his body was slowly weakening. His steps were slow and difficult as he walked toward the peak. At the top of the Hengyun Peak there was a large, stone platform. Just as Zhong Xinhai reached the peak, his eyes immediately narrowed. He looked at the person on the platform with his muddy gaze. This was a youth wearing white and his black hair flowed in the wind. His clothes were also being blown by the wind and were making flapping sounds. In Zhong Xinhai's eyes, it was as if this person doesn't exist. He couldn't detect anyone there with his divine sense, yet he could clearly see the person with his eyes. This strong contrast made it so that he couldn't help but take a few steps back. There was a trace of shock in his calm expression. The black-haired youth didn't turn around. He looked at the sunset over the horizon and calmly said, "This place is not bad." This simple sentence had no power within it, but when it landed in Zhong Xinhai's ears, it suddenly filled his frail body with vigor. It also suppressed his identity as the powerful head of the Zhong family. He subconsciously lowered his head and his eyes filled up with terror. This was the effect of an aura, this was something he knew about. When he met even mortal emperors, they would lower their heads due to his own aura. At this moment, this was happening to him. The only explanation was that he was like a mortal to this youth. Unfortunately, such a mountain was used by you guys as a graveyard. The black-haired youth shook his head and waved his right hand. The mountain immediately trembled and the death aura that had gathered here for countless years immediately vanished without a trace. The entire mountain seemed to gain new life, like when someone who had a long-term illness suddenly recovered. The mountain recovered immediately and seemed to be filled with life. Zhong Xinhai was startled as he stared at the scene before him and only recovered after a while. His face was filled with excitement. Without any hesitation, he knelt on the ground and respectfully said, "Junior Zhong Xianhai greets Senior. If Senior likes this Hengyun Peak, then Junior will immediately gift it to you." Hengyun Peak, this black-haired youth was Wang Lin. He turned around, looked at Zhong Xinhai and slowly said, "Your lifespan is almost at its end, it would be difficult to change that even with my power." Zhong Xinhai let out a bitter smile and respectfully said, "Senior misunderstood me. Junior understands the will of heavens and does not seek help. To be able to meet a powerful cultivator like Senior before dying leaves Junior with no regrets. Not to mention this mountain, I'll even gift Senior this planet, Qingling, if Senior wants it." Wang Lin turned around and his right hand sent a ray of spiritual energy to the spot between Zhong Xinhai's brows. He gently said, "I can't change your life, but burning your own spiritual energy to extend your life by 10 years is something I can do." When he sent out that ray of spiritual energy, Wang Lin let out a sigh. This spell was something he could just barely use after seeing the third step. If he knew about this before, then Li Muwen wouldn't be taking shelter inside the heaven-defying bead. When the spell landed between Zhong Xinhai's eyebrows, his body trembled and he immediately felt vitality coming from the spiritual energy in his body. His face became red as he took a deep breath. He looked at Wang Lin and respectfully said, "Thank you, Senior. If Senior has any commands, Junior will do his best to carry them out." Someone who had become the Zhong family's head was not stupid. No one in this world would do this for nothing. When he heard Wang Lin say that this mountain was good, he immediately gifted the mountain without any hesitation. For someone with Wang Lin's kind of cultivation to say that, it was already very merciful. Those that had bad tempers would just occupy it directly. If they became unhappy, it would be too easy for them to slaughter a few small cultivation families like theirs. Zhong Xinhai guessed that this person was not from planet Qingling and must have come from outside. To be able to step into space meant that this person was at least at the soul transformation stage or above. Wang Lin calmly looked at Zhong Xinhai and calmly said, "I'll give you 10 years of time to collect as much resentment from the mortal world as possible. The more the better. If I'm pleased with your result, then as long as this planet has me, your Zhong family will never be extinguished. Go now." Wang Lin waved his big sleeves. Zhong Xinhai only felt a gust of wind. Before him was only thick fog and wind filled his ears. When he regained his vision, he was already at the foot of the mountain. The scene from before felt like a dream to him. He touched the spot between his eyebrows, felt the dense vitality in his body, and took a deep breath. His eyes were filled with excitement as he bowed toward the mountain and quickly left. "I must do my best to complete Senior's request." Zhong Xinhai turned into a ray of light as he charged toward the Zhong family's home. After sending away Zhong Xinhai, Wang Lin pondered a bit before taking out the 1 billion soul flag. He gently stabbed the 30-foot-tall flag into the mountain. The flag was opened by the wind and the soul fragments flew out, surrounding the entire peak. The 3 primary souls came out and surrounded the area. The entire mountain was immediately covered by a dense, black fog. Wang Lin waved his right hand backwards and a powerful force shot out toward the mountain. There were sounds of explosions as a large cave appeared in the mountain. The door to the cave was at the top of the mountain, surrounded by rocks. It looked very majestic. Wang Lin's right finger pointed out and a celestial spell shot out and imprinted on the door. The presence of the celestial spell created a powerful pressure. After doing all of this, Wang Lin sat down and his divine sense spread across planet Qingling once more. This time he wasn't searching, he was sending out a message. From today onward, this is my cultivation planet. The area 5,000 kilometers around Hengyun Peak is a forbidden zone. Any trespasser will not be shown mercy. Wang Lin's divine sense was like thunder as it echoed across the planet. His voice entered the ears of every cultivator, causing their expressions to change greatly. However, not a single one of them dared to resist. A spell that could spread across the entire planet shocked their hearts and also made them feel like it was something inconceivable. From this day onward, planet Qingling had an owner, and that owner was Wang Lin. Wang Lin was the peak existence on planet Qingling. He was just like the blood ancestor, who had the right to control life and death on the blood planet. And also like the All-Seer's supreme identity on planet Qianyun. This video will end here.